You're listening to Subculture on CentralCoastRadio.com, and I'm your host, Kyle. And I've got another Fringe Festival show that I have been to that I want to talk to you about. This one's called JON and JERO Improv Narrated by Comedians, and it's pretty much what it says on the can, really. It's improv which is narrated by comedians as special guests. I've mentioned before my fondness for, and my admiration for the art of improv and those that can perform it. And I think improvisation seems to be it's one of those one of the most common learning tools for an actor, but it's one that few performers seem to be really good at mastering. For comedians, it's rarer still to find somebody who's talented enough to be a consistently hilarious improviser. And for John Walpole and Jeremiah Datto, I believe that these are two such talented performers. They're both veterans of improv comedy, and the two of them are individually hilarious, and they're even better when they team up. John and Jero, as the duo go by as a double act, they performed earlier this year in a choose your own adventure style children's show titled Stuff, which that was back in April, and it I think they were performing for about a month at the Australian Centre for the Moving Image. I was lucky enough to see stuff, and it was really was like an exciting and fun performance, which had the kids and adults in the audience in stitches. Their new show is something very different. It coming off the back of their more child-friendly performance. John and Jero improv narrated by comedians. It's in concept it's simple, but in explanation it's rich in possibility. Each night, Walpole and Detto perform an almost completely improvised show with the aid and sometimes the sabotage of different guest comedians. For the opening night, which is the one that I went to, the duo were paired up with another comedic team, which were the brothers Tom and Josh Burton, the Burton brothers. John and Jero, they don their signature monogrammed overalls, which each of them is marked with a J to avoid confusion. That's kind of the joke. But this is definitely not a show for kids. Like nothing is off limits, and the night really does get quite quite raw, and pretty much goes as far as the guests as well as the audience want it to go. I also just love the idea of the John and Jero as a brand being this double act which can work for all audiences. The same silliness which I think kept kids entertained back in April, and adults as well, with a more child friendly show. I think it also works incredibly well with more mature content as well. With this current run of shows potentially and very likely containing everything from foul language to adult themes and who knows what else. Uh, for the show that I went to, they warmed up on opening night with a tale being regaled from the Burton's youth and acted out by John and Jero. It was kind of this embarrassing story of science class one student showing off and dacking, which led to them showing off more than they bargained on. Which this story, it becomes clear that the show not only does it rely on the quick wits of John and Jero, but it also relies on the wits of their guests as well, whoever's helping narrate the show and guiding John and Jero through the story. It's pretty much a 50-50 kind of thing. Uh, and from then on, it was a variety of games, stories created with suggestions from the audience, ad libbed by the Burtons, and then acted out by John and Jero. Uh, Tanks were driven by guinea pigs. Gordon Ramsay faced off with his nemesis, Jamie Oliver. There was plenty of swearing in there. Darwin nightclubs were drenched in blood, and railway barons were betrayed by Macho Man Randy Savage. It was, yeah, quite an insane night. The show was far from structured, and it went completely off the rails more than once. But I think that's what made the night so entertaining. It's an hour of this spontaneous comedy from masters of their craft. It felt like they were still ironing out some of the kinks in the show, and they were getting the timing right. But again, that was perfectly fine. Walpole and Jeremiah, being the gifted performers that they are, can simply pull ideas from the crowd and turn them into just gold on the spot. And of course, being supported by equally talented special guests, such as the Burton brothers, it only adds to the creativity on display. As I said, there were some technical issues with microphones going out and lighting cues being slightly off, but I also I really want to credit the fellow comedian Conk, who was working the soundboard for the night. I guess he was kind of the technical guy for the night. Um, he was able to keep up with the pacing of the show and was consistently surprising with the assortment of sounds at his fingertips. Like no sooner had an idea being pulled from nowhere that Conk was able to have like an accompanying sound effect ready, primed and ready to go. So yeah, John and Jero Improv, narrated by comedians. It's an unpredictable joyride. It's a show that I would like to see them do again down the line. The audience for the show that I went to, the opening night, yeah, it was really in hysterics. And the best part, I think, is being improv every night will be a completely new experience, especially with the completely different guests acting as narrator. It was a pleasure watching such skilled entertainers jamming it out and yeah, just trying to one up each other for the laughs of the audience. I would give this 4 out of 5 stars, and yeah, John and Jero Improv, narrated by comedians. It's currently playing at Festival Hub Trades Hall until October 15th. So yeah, for tickets, check out melbournefringe.com.au, and we'll be back right after this.